Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, or good morning, wherever you're joining us from today. It's great to see such a global audience on the call, as we often do for these online sessions. My name is Jonathan Dover. I'm a recruitment manager for the Executive MBA here at the Saïd Business School. Great to have you along today, and I'm joined today by my colleague Laura Loudon, who is my counterpart for our Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership. So yeah, great to have you all along today. It's a surprisingly sunny and blue sky day in Oxford. We've not had much of that recently. So it's good to see that, and yeah, great to see so much engagement on the call today. Looking forward to hearing hopefully some questions from you all later on. So today's webinar, as you know, is all about healthcare and healthcare leaders at Oxford. It's certainly a sector that's always been close to our hearts here at the Business School, and there's been many efforts over the years to hopefully introduce leaders into the sector with a purpose and people looking to make an impact from within, and there really is a need recognised across the Business School for that leadership within the sector and beyond. So now that we have in our portfolio a Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership, allied to the Executive MBA, two quite different programs, and hopefully what today will do will be help to kind of clarify a few things for people who perhaps are considering a master's program but aren't quite sure exactly what direction to take. And obviously the two programs are quite different in terms of their focus, and quite different in terms of formats and sort of overall face time, etc. as well. So we'll get into that detail in due course. And really looking forward to hearing from two of our current Executive MBA students and two current students on the Masters for Global Healthcare Leadership as well. And we'll really get into their experience on the program and the impact that their studies have had on their career so far, and just a bit about their experience here at the Business School and in Oxford as well. So to get started, we're going to have basically a brief overview of the two programs, and then at the end we'll flag some details as to how you can find out more about admission onto the program and some of the mechanics around that. But really today is more about getting a sense for which program could be the best fit for you by hearing from our panelists. So once we've had a brief overview of each program, we'll get into that as quickly as possible. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Laura first of all, to walk you through the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership, and then I'll come back in a little bit to chat about EMBA. But yeah, over to you, Laura, first of all.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. Really nice to see you. I'm Laura Loudon, and I'm the recruitment manager for the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership. So I'm the person to speak to if you have any questions about joining the program in future. But if we could move to the next slide. I'm just going to start by telling you all a little bit about the program, and yeah, just giving you a really quick overview, which should give some context when we get to the discussion later. So the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership is a new program. It launched in 2022, so we've had two cohorts so far, and it's a joint program. So it's led by the Nuffield Department of Primary Care Health Sciences in partnership with Saïd Business School. Nuffield Primary Care is a medical science department of Oxford University, and it's been one of the world's most important primary care centres for over 20 years, so has loads of knowledge in really key areas of the programme like digital health and evidence-based medicine and health policy. And the Business School, of course, has the background in leadership and innovation and entrepreneurship. So as you'd expect, the programme is designed for people working in healthcare, in both clinical and non-clinical roles. So everyone on the programme has some experience of working in the sector. You don't have to have spent your whole career in healthcare, but I think you certainly see your future within the healthcare industry. In terms of the structure, and I'll say a little bit more about this on the next slide, but it's a 2-year part-time programme broken down into 18 months of taught modules and then 6 months at the end working on a dissertation. We have one class every year with the next intake starting at the end of September. And the fee for the programme for this year is just over £57,500. Please could I have the next slide? Great. So just to share a little bit more information on the modules and the timings. So as you can see, there are 8 modules in total. 7 of them are held in person, and we have 1 online module. The first in-person module is 5 days, and the remaining 6 are 4 days. So they start on a Tuesday and finish on a Friday. And in terms of the frequency, as you can see, the in-person modules are spaced about sort of 8 to 12 weeks apart. So you need to travel to Oxford every couple of months for the in-person modules. The online module, which is module 8, it doesn't actually start at the end. It runs in 5 blocks of learning throughout the programme. Each block lasts 8 days, but the majority of that work is self-paced, but there will be some live sessions to join, and you'll also do some group work as well. So in terms of the commitment outside of a module week, we advise it's about 10 hours of study time a week, and this is generally spent reading and working on your assessments. Please can I have the next slide? Lovely. So I know people are always keen to hear a little bit more about the class profile. So just to share a little bit of headline information here. So as you can see, the class, we generally see about 40 people on the class, so it's a really nice size. And the average age is early 40s, but there's a lot of range within that. So we have people in their late 20s, and we have people in their 50s and 60s. And we love having that diversity of perspective on the programme. We have good female representation, so almost half the class are women. And we have generally over 20 nationalities. So I would say typically about 80% of the class are based outside of the UK and come from all across the globe. And in terms of level of experience, you need to have at least 5 years experience to apply for the programme. But as you can see, people tend to have a fair bit more. But again, it's absolutely fine if you have a little bit less than this or if you have more than 15 years experience. And then in terms of the sectors, so we see generally over sort of 10 subsectors within healthcare. So I would say about 30 or 40% of the class are physicians and have studied medicine. And then the remaining class work in a variety of areas within healthcare. So we have people in public health, we have people in consulting, technology, pharma, we have entrepreneurs. It's a really great mix, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more when we get to the panel discussion. So I hope that's been helpful, and I will just hand back to Jonathan, who will do the same with the Executive MBA.
Thanks, Laura. And yeah, next slide, please, Sophie. Perfect. Yeah. So following on from what Laura said, yeah, I mean some similarities with the EMBA program versus the masters, but also some pretty crucial differences as well. So yeah, as you can see here, the EMBA is made up of between 16 and 18 week-long modules over effectively 2 years. The program is slightly shorter if you start it in January. We have 2 intakes each academic year, so you can start the program either in September or January. And really, that's just a case of what works best for your schedule, and you can make the choice between those two. There's not really any particular difference between the 2 intakes, albeit apart from the January intake is slightly compressed. So there are certain points where the gapping between modules is slightly less. What that means in reality is that 1 week out of every 5 or 6, roughly, over those 2 years, you would be required to attend an in-person module here in Oxford, or at one of our international locations for those particular modules. So there's 1 core international module that you do in the first part of the program, and then 2 international electives that you can choose from in the second part of the program. So that again, they're optional. There are other things that you can do in Oxford during those weeks, but as you can see from the locations there, they tend to be quite popular choices, and that just hopefully gives you a sense of the global sort of emphasis of the program, but that's also backed up by the makeup of the class as well, which we'll come on to in a second. Also, there are 3 core themes that cut through the program. So entrepreneurial thinking, strategic leadership, and global complexity and risk. And kind of regardless of what course or module you're doing at any stage in the program, you'll find that there will always be a nod to those core themes. And that's actually been highly influential in terms of us getting a really diverse mix on the program from both an industry perspective and from a nationality perspective as well, which will be illustrated by the next slide, please, Sophie. So yeah, there you have it. That's the breakdown of a typical executive MBA class. So that was the class that started in January 24, but that's pretty representative, to be honest, of what you can expect. The class size will vary between sort of 60 and 70. It has been as high as 72, but that's that's in and around the target number. Typically, there will be, at least 30 different nationalities in each class. There are 37 in this particular class, which it really just gives you a sense of the global nature of the program. And again, that's not just in terms of the course content, but also in terms of the class that you would be joining. Employment sectors, and we'll get onto this in the discussion, but clearly, that's a bit of a difference between the executive MBA and the healthcare masters, in that obviously there are people from more different employment sectors who tend to be attracted to the executive MBA. We probably get on each EMBA cohort usually a handful of people from healthcare. So for everyone on this call, you would be amongst friends in that respect, but it's quite a diverse mix in terms of the other industry sectors that are represented, as you would expect, because the EMBA is ultimately, it's a broad general management program that attracts people from a range of different industry sectors. On average, people will have around 15 years of work experience. So people typically at sort of director and C-suite level with significant management experience already under their belt. And as you can see, they're usually between 30 and 40% female participation on the program, which is a figure that we're keen to get even higher if we can. So next slide, please. So now we get to the real crux of today's session, hopefully, and I'm going to in a moment get our panel to just really introduce themselves and say something about their experience, but also sort of what led them to the programs that they're participating in. So we've got two people from the Executive MBA and two people from the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership, and hopefully this will be a really good kind of exchange in terms of the kind of the pros and cons of each program, and why someone in your situation in the audience today might consider either program, and the impact it's had on their careers will hopefully give you a sense of what might be the best fit. So yeah, just kind of working across from left to right, starting with Alessia, who I know had a couple of difficulties joining the call, but I think is with us now and hopefully able to get camera turned on and all of that. So yeah, Alessia, if you wouldn't mind just quickly introducing yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Everything works perfectly now. Thank
Excellent.
you. So yeah, I'm Alessia Spicer. I am an MD by my background. I'm a dermatologist and I have a PhD in medical science. My current position is a medical director at Sanofi in the US. And as Jonathan mentioned before, I'm really honored to be accepted to J24. So I'm currently a student of MBA program.
Thank you very much, Alessia. And next, Bernard.
Oh, great. Thanks, Jonathan. And good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bernard. I am a J23, so similar to Alessia, it's part of the EMBA program, a little bit kind of farther along the journey. I'm kind of already seeing the home stretch and really sad about that, really bittersweet, but excited to talk about my experiences today and hopefully kind of shed some light on the program. Just as quick background, I am an emergency physician, an ER doctor, and also a research psychologist. I'd actually done my PhD in neuropsychology prior to going to medical school. So I have strong interest in both research as well as kind of clinical medicine. Currently at Columbia, I'm the associate dean. I oversee the research portfolio at our university. And I also have an entrepreneurial hat. I have a medical co-founder of a digital health startup company, which will kind of tie into kind of my journey during the MBA, as well as kind of like the support that I've got from my classmates. So thanks.
Thanks, Bernard. And yeah, conscious you do wear a couple of different hats, so I wasn't 100% sure what job title to put in the blurb, but hopefully we got that okay. Moving on to Neha.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Neha Vora, and I'm privileged to be the first batch of the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership starting in 2022. I'm based out of Mumbai, India, and I'm an entrepreneur by background. I'm a co-founder and CEO of OncoConnect. We work in the AI space for cancer screening. It's been an absolutely amazing experience here at Oxford. And as I said, I'm glad to be from the first batch of this new program that they started 2 years ago. Thank you.
Thanks, Neha. And finally, Omari.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kofi Omari. I'm a medical doctor and I also hold a master's in occupational health. Currently, I work as a remote site physician on an oil and gas installation in the North Sea, or Norway to be specific. I'm also the founder of two community-centered health initiatives back in Ghana, which is one directed towards reducing the prevalence of undiagnosed hypertension, and then also increasing the medical literacy rates within the population. I'm also excited to be part of this panel and share my insights and experiences with the program so far.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. So yeah, we'll get into some questions now. So Laura and I will kick things off, but to the audience, if you want to pop any questions that you have in the Q&A function on the call, and then we can get to those. And yeah, feel free to ask anything. There's nothing sort of there's no particular agenda, but you know, hopefully the questions that we ask will lead to some quite fluid discussion between the panelists. And yeah, as I say, feel free to pop anything in the chat. So yeah, Laura, I think you've got the first question.
I do, yes. Thanks, everyone. Really nice to hear about your very different backgrounds. So my first question is quite a straightforward one. Just really be nice to hear from each of you why you chose your particular programs, so either the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership or the Masters in EMBA, sort of, yeah. What drew you to and what you're looking to get out of it? So, Neha, should we start with you? You're in my top corner.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem. It was I think what attracted me to the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership was that it was a mix between the Said Business School and the Nuffield School of Medical Sciences. So Nuffield School of Primary Health. So I think because it was a bridge between the two, there was a little bit of skepticism that I had because it was the first cohort. So of course there was a bit of that anxiety, but I think I've made the right choice. The cohort has been fantastic, and yeah, I think it was for me, it was the club between the two schools that you got the best of both.
Great, thank you. And yeah, very brave being the first cohort to fly the flags for the program. Bernard, shall I come to you next?
Sure. No, and it's interesting because I was in a very similar position to a lot of the attendees today. When I was applying to business school, when I was applying to schools, I'd say at the position I was previously, I was really interested in trying to look for a program that really would help me support leadership development, as well as have a bit of a healthcare bent from that standpoint. And so initially was looking within executive MBA programs locally here within the United States. And there are a number of great programs that have a great healthcare focus. And I think for me, what really drew me to Oxford was this idea of being part of a global cohort. But also importantly, I think that there is an underlying ethos or philosophy within the university, not just within the specific units of the business school, for example, but within a broader university, what I would say impact and hopefully kind of societal contribution. And I think that mission ethos really attracted me to Said. And when I got to kind of drawn into the Oxford universe, I then found about this master's in global healthcare leadership. And I think I went really back and forth too. I mean, similar, I would have been probably like the second cohort. So not quite as pioneering as Neha, but I think for me, ultimately what kind of tipped me into the EMBA was for my work in the entrepreneurial space, I wanted to be like the kind of the analogy from medical school. I wanted to go to medical school and not residency. I mean, there's a phenomenal, I think, resources and opportunities with the Masters in Healthcare Leadership program with regards to kind of really honing into some of the content and within the healthcare space. For me, in some sense, I wanted to, of course, I am a physician, but talking to, say, our funders or talking to other people in the finance industry, I wanted to kind of get a bit more of a generalist kind of curriculum. And so I think it was, even though it's not my cup of tea or forte, but learning about some of the things within financial accounting or private equity. And I think that it was a unique opportunity for myself individually to kind of not rebrand myself, but at least kind of reintroduce myself to other colleagues professionally as a physician, but also someone who had these other interests kind of around that space around entrepreneurship.
Lovely, thank you. No, that's really nice to hear. Really helpful, I think. Amari, I'm going to come to you next.
Yeah, so it's interesting because my journey is a bit similar to Bernard. However, it's in the reverse direction, you know. So for me, growing up, I always knew that I wanted to do something outside the hospital space as a clinician. So having settled on occupational health as my specialty of interest, the question was, how can I make a system-wide impact within a specialty which compared to others is close non-existent in Ghana? So there was a sharp realization then that I didn't have the competence and also the confidence to pursue such a big program, for it to be effective. So I also flirted with the idea of an MBA and then with a pathway to healthcare. But once I saw this program, which felt very specified to healthcare, it was more of looking from healthcare and then looking outside instead of an MBA where you are more looking outside and then probably looking back into healthcare. So I find it very suitable to my expectations and then what I aspire to do in the future. And of course, the fact that it's also part-time meant that I could work and then still school at the same time.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think, yeah, that's a really nice sort of way of looking at it, and exactly right, how the program is sort of placed. Yeah, so, and Alicia, over to you.
Yeah. So very similar story, maybe a little bit different because I switched my career 6 years ago from medical to pharmaceutical business. And with that, there are kind of several things I wanted to accomplish because this is a business world. And at our medical schools, we do not study any business. So I felt that it was a really opportunity for me to gain this technical part, like technical knowledge, but also based on this fundamental business knowledge that I've been gaining right now. This is a great opportunity for adaptive learning and the way you lead and the way you not only teams and organizations, but also, on personal level, there are big changes. I already can see it. And in addition, I feel that, again, on my position as a medical director, I have challenge because I've been working in cross-functional organization. And Sanofi is the 5th pharmaceutical company in the world. So it's really big. And on a daily basis, I interact a lot with cross-functional partners. And I found out that sometimes people have competing interests and objectives. And to lead in this type of organization, you really need to be a cross-functional leader. So that was kind of my purpose as well. And because we have, as Jonathan mentioned, 37 different nationalities and backgrounds, having this global perspective and different backgrounds that we can share with each other and collaborate on some projects, it's very, very, very valuable for me. And on another side, thinking about moving forward and talking about greater impact. So I think this is, again, opportunity to utilize all this Oxford kind of system, right? And also networking and knowledge to be able to make a greater impact.
Thank you so much. And that actually leads very nicely into our next question, which I think Jonathan will ask.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So next of all, I wanted to get all of you guys to say something about the impact that your respective programs have had thus far on both your careers, so professional impact, but also personally as well. So maybe if I could get each of you in turn to say something to that. And obviously, I appreciate that everyone's at a slightly different point in their journey, so that will obviously affect the answer that you're going to give. But yeah, if we could get each of you to sort of say something first of all about the professional impact and then the personal impact, maybe starting with Neha, if that's okay.
Sure, that's fine. Thanks, Jonathan. I think professionally, it's had an impact positively in both professionally and personally. But professionally, it's made a difference because I think I have a better understanding of other global health systems because the cohort has so many different nationalities and we have so much discussion that it helps you to understand what the other healthcare systems are. And then I work in India and I'm an entrepreneur, so it helps me to compare between the two. And also what's been really good is, though it was a master's in global healthcare leadership, all the modules I could relate back to the work I'm doing. I'm at the stage of writing my dissertation, and that's linked back to my work, which brings a lot of confidence, if you like, back into the workspace that I work with. So professionally, it has helped me to have much more global understanding, global perspective, global colleagues, and also how you can amalgamate that to make healthcare more unified. So I think that's the professional way. Personally, it's been a great journey. I've made some amazing friends from across the globe now. And we're still, I mean, of course, we're doing our dissertation, so we're still in touch, and we call ourselves the MGHL family. And it really does feel like that. We've supported each other through the times. I'll be very honest, the 2 years have gone very quick. I think Kofi will agree with me. You wouldn't know where the 2 years go, though it's a part-time course. I cannot believe that I've come to my dissertation, and 2 years ago I was in this dilemma of which module am I doing, and it's just about to start, and I have work and I have family, and I'm going to be a student again. But I can't believe that the 2 years has come to an end. It's a fantastic journey, and thank you, Oxford, for everything. So it's been absolutely great. Thank you.
Fantastic. And yeah, so it sounds like the MGHL WhatsApp group is just as active as the EMBA one, which is good to hear. Alessia, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think I a little bit mentioned already about my journey as well. And I think professionally, I can see a huge impact already on my professional development. We've been studying a lot of strategy recently and leadership and even analytics, but I think it kind of helps to rewire your brain, the way you think and the way you see the picture. So you're able to see a bigger picture, much bigger than you thought it is before, especially in organizations like big pharma. And I think it can apply like anywhere, because again, not only global perspective, but inside the organization, to understand the business part and to understand how to strategize everything in a way that it can have a greater impact. So I think this is amazing. And on personal level, I think it's just amazing. I'm so excited. I'm going to Oxford next week again. I've been traveling every month for a week in Oxford, and I never regret it, to be honest, because I think it's amazing. We have 60 people, they're all friends, and this excitement of, sharing with each other your, like life, personal stories, your professional stories. It's just amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, and yeah, so it's a couple of interesting points there, and I think in particular, sort of that piece around mindset, because I think before you even get into sort of the nuts and bolts of the program or the specific courses that you can take, I think it's always interesting to hear about how people's mindsets change, that ability to take a step back and look at problems from a totally different perspective. I think certainly in the early parts of the program, in particular, as you are, Alessia, I think that's always something that's really interesting to see as kind of an impact on people from kind of module one, really. Kofi, should we have a thought from you on that next?
Yeah, I think that for me as well, it's had both a personal and then a professional impact on my life. From the professional standpoint, the best way I can describe it is that it's giving me clarity, because I did come into the program with lots of questions. What do you want to do? How do you make impact? There are so many questions in my head, and even how to go about it was a problem. And it was also, even though I've had several positions in leadership capacities in the past, it's the first time I'm looking at a system-wide or a wicked problem. And of course, I felt unprepared to be able to handle it. So that's something in the present, some of the things that I've learned from class have been immediately applicable in my day-to-day job. So even things like organizational leadership, how the strategy is going, alignment, and when you go to systems thinking, now I'm not just looking at how I can solve an issue just within my organization, but are there other things that I can do outside of my organization that can also make a bigger impact? So that's been very good for me. And then also with respect to the future, I'm now having a roadmap of exactly what I want to do to be able to make that impact in the occupational health space in Ghana. On a personal level, I feel that it's just a community. You have a lot of people, even though I am just at the cusp of my leadership journey in that sense, and I have cohorts with a lot of experienced people. So it's more like a family. You have just social interactions, and then they are giving you advice about things that you've not even thought about. And 2 weeks later, that same thought comes to your head, and you're like, and then it opens a new pathway of thinking and then doing things. So that has been a very good experience for me personally, hanging out with people who are super experienced, knowledgeable, and with very distinct and unique perspectives that sort of add to your own experiences.
Fantastic, thank you. And finally, Bernard.
Sure. And I'm just gonna kind of, this is a wonderful comments from the rest of the panelists, and just kind of just building on a different theme too as well, just kind of what I would say, like the learning mindset professionally. I think one of the most amazing things from the experience, and I think it's probably applicable for both programs, is that most of the individuals who come into the program are already quite senior, I would say established individuals in their fields, usually kind of the leader, proverbial leader in their group. And it's a very refreshing perspective to all of a sudden flip that and now be the learner and really be the person who may not know may know very little about a specific topic in the discussion, and really be kind of in that position of the learner. And I think that's a really phenomenal experience. I mean, to truly be in that seat and have that almost, I would say sometimes intimidation, excitement that you might see kind of being surrounded by really accomplished peers and learning at a global scale perspectives from very, very different kind of mindsets and backgrounds than yourself. I think that feeds into also the personal experience. I would say, just thinking a lot from the U.S. standpoint, from your university, that's kind of, there's a stereotype of where your university days are where you really have friends, where you don't think about your professional goals, and you just find a place where you just hang out with people and you just have organic conversations, and you may or may not know what they do, but you're just really happy to be with them. And I think I never thought I would experience that again decades later in a professional development program. And I think personally that has been, for me, transformational. Just kind of an art stage in your life when you think you've kind of settled things out personally. You have your own family, you've got your great close friends, and to realize that there is another bucket again within that group to really find those connections and realize that there is family, that they may come from very, very different backgrounds from you, professionally, personally, but you've kind of found another community and family again. And so that's been personally probably the most profound experience for me during the EMBA program.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, it's great to hear that sort of in amongst all of the study and the professional development, there is that human element as well, which has really come out from most of your answers, actually. So yeah, great to hear. Conscious that there's a question from Tim in the Q&A. I think I'm right in saying that we've probably covered covered up that off in those recent answers, but Tim, feel free to ping something else in the Q&A if not. Otherwise, we'll move on to another one from Laura, I think.
Yeah, thanks. And just a reminder, yeah, keep the questions coming. Obviously, this is a good opportunity to ask any questions that you have directly sort of for the next 20 minutes or so. So my next question, I guess, is a little bit more, you've all touched on, obviously, the importance of the classroom and your classmates and sort of the enjoyment that you get from that, but perhaps maybe hearing a little bit more about the wider Oxford network. I know from my experience of spending a lot of time with the students on the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership, you're obviously very much a part of the two departments, and you have your college membership, you're a member, all of you will be a member of one of the Oxford colleges. Yeah, it'd just be nice to hear a little bit about what you're enjoying, if you leverage the network or how you're using the wider sort of Oxford experience to benefit you. Yeah, Omari, I'm going to start with you if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. So to some extent, I feel that I'm not enjoying the full Oxford experience because it's a part-time program, and then you get to spend, for me, I spend about a week to 10 days on Oxford every 2 months. But in terms of what I do, it's that there are lots of programs available that when I'm in Oxford, I try to attend them both from my college and then also from the department. And then there are a lot of WhatsApp groups actually, and that also helps for the interactions to be outside of school. And yeah, and I think that the program itself and the faculty in the school itself, they have a lot of programs that integrate other departments, other specialties, and other faculties. So there are countless opportunities to be able to interact. The issue comes with how available are you to interact with them fully. So sometimes you would have to prioritize, especially in my case where you're not there always, to pick and choose which ones you feel that align with your goals at the moment and then what you'd want to achieve. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. I think you have to be, there's so much you can get involved with, you have to be a little bit selective. So thanks. Bernard, over to you.
Sure, and I think that when I was looking at programs, one of the biggest things was looking at the format of the program. You know, for a lot of these part-time master's programs, there could be weekend, every other weekend versus immersive experience. I know, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but there are some, I would say, costs and time to kind of really spend your time within Oxford. But looking back now at the program, coming towards the end of the program, truly that immersive experience within the program has been probably one of the keystone experiences within the program. And I would say when we are there, I truly feel as an Oxford student, you know, part of the broader university. When I go to my modules, I stay at our college at Balliol. There's a dorm, there's a dorm for graduate students that we stay at, and I have almost like our routine. We know the porter, we go in, there's a dorm, there's a whole group of friends, even outside of the business school program, that I've become friends with organically over the last few years coming through the program. And so I think there is this incredible immersive experience within the program that applies for both of our programs. That is really, in some ways, I can't emphasize enough, has been a really great strength, I think, of the curriculum within Said and Nuffield. And I think that one of the other things too is that both personally, of course, there's incredible areas within campus, and you'll find your groove about your activities. You know, we have people both from the food choices, the pub choices, music, the other alternatives, so many different alternatives for people who are interested in social activities. But that also complements your professional development, because I think that even from some of the college dinners, the informal conversations I've had with some of my college mates within Balliol, as well as within the medical center, that has led to some very concrete, tangible professional outcomes in terms of collaborations and research grants. So I think that there is really this organic ecosystem that occurs from having this immersive curriculum for the programs.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Often it's those sort of informal conversations that can really spark something interesting. And I know that cohort 1 for Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership have done a lot of that. I don't know, Neha, if you want to speak a little bit about some things that have been going on over there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Laura. Firstly, I mean, Oxford is a great place. The weather needs to be compliant with you because it can rain anytime, but that's very classical of the UK. It has nothing to do with Oxford. The 1 week that you are there for your intensive module is really intensive. They use the word intensive, and it is. So it can be, but we at our the first cohort, we have every Monday, which is our free day. We've managed to do a lot of social events. We've gone punting, we've just done a picnic in the parks, we've done walks, we've done lots of different things as a group. We've gone for different dinners, we've done a pub crawl, and, you know, explored all the different pubs and the historical sites of Oxford. So we did a lot of social stuff for the time that we were there, because once the module starts, it becomes very intensive. You don't get a chance to do anything much. We've had international days, like we've celebrated Diwali and Eid and all these different Christmas. We were together just before Christmas. We had our cohort, so we had like a Christmas dinner. So we've done lots of social stuff, and we continue to. Which is great. But Oxford has a lot to explore, and there are a lot of smaller villages, etc., around Oxford, which we also managed to explore as well. So I think it's a great place, and it is a dream university to be in at the end of the day. So what you get, learning experience. We've gone to all the different libraries, studied in those libraries, which is great, and just that feeling of it is great. And I've really enjoyed my time, so I can't wait to be back there probably later this year or next year. So
Thanks, Neha. It's amazing how much you've managed to pack in. And I did see a question about how long people come how long people come to Oxford for. I think, I don't know if you guys agree, but generally most people arrive at least the day before your module starts and generally leave the day after. So yeah, personal preference and everything. Yeah, obviously, and budgets to take into account. But so Alicia, any other points that you'd like to make on this before we move on?
The Oxford has been built right around the university, and this is really, really a unique atmosphere there. So just be there as a part of this university. It's very unique, and I'm very proud, to be a part of this historical university. And also, as everybody else mentioned here, it's a great opportunity to study, right? And I agree, it's intense, but we also have a lot of fun. So it's just many different layers, and kind of every module you're discovering something new, personally and of course professionally.
Great, thank you. And I can see actually we've had a question. I'm not sure if it's especially for the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership, just asking what's been your favourite module so far. Obviously, Mari, I know you're back for module 5 next week, so you actually still have a few to come, and you're partway through the online module. But Neha, you have completed all of them. What's been your favourite module?
I think they've all been great, and all have been a learning experience. But I personally enjoyed the evidence-based module, evidence-based.
Module 4.
Yeah, module 4. I really enjoyed that the most. I think Kofi's just finished that module not long ago. It looks like it. And yeah, I think that's been my most enjoyable module. I really enjoyed that one.
Thank you. Would you agree, Mari?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, it was an interesting module. But for me personally, I would go with the module 3, which was on the systems thinking.
That was my
Yeah,
other choice.
yeah. Yeah. Because being exposed to those tools or those frameworks that are useful for deconstructing very big and systematic problems and breaking them down to their basis or their minimum and then building up from there, I found that very useful. Not just even in solving problems in healthcare, but also just in my life and thinking about how to resolve issues. Yeah.
But you know, even module 3 was interesting, and I agree with him. It's mainly because I've not studied systems before. I didn't know how that was to be done. So, but for me, I'd still stick with module 4.
Yeah. All right.
That's the winner. Great. And Ali also mentioned about considering the program as newly launched. Could you elaborate on the frequency of alumni events per year? Well, we don't have any graduates of the program yet, as you probably heard. So Neha and her group will graduate, but obviously, yeah, the class will be very much tied in with, you have lifelong alumni status at Oxford, so there'll be a real range of events that take place at the university globally. So there's lots of things that happen in the UK, but also happen all over the world. So you'll be tied into that, and we also plan on having reunions with the classes as well. So it's quite a new network that's starting in the Masters of Global Healthcare Leadership, but the plan is to have regular catch-ups where we bring alumni back together in Oxford on a regular basis. Jonathan, shall I hand over to you to ask? We probably haven't got a huge amount of time actually, but
yeah, we've got quite a few questions coming through in the Q&A, so it would be good to get through a couple more of them if we can. So one from Alan about entrepreneurship specifically, which is a good one for both programs. Great to see a number of people on the panel with entrepreneurial experience, and Alan would like to know how the respective programs have contributed to your entrepreneurial thinking and development. Obviously, it's certainly a central theme for the EMBA, and I'm certainly getting a sense of similar experiences on the Masters as well. But Bernard, you mentioned in your intro that you've got some entrepreneurial ventures on the go at the moment. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's a great question, Alan. And I think what's really interesting about the EMBA program is that in your cohort, you'll have both a lot of entrepreneurs, but then also a lot of folks in venture capital or into financing into things too. So you have the whole full spectrum of kind of the entrepreneurial journey. And so for me individually, prior to going to business school, I had started my company. We'd finished raising several rounds of funding. And so we had been through kind of what I would say the entrepreneur side of kind of pitching and trying to grow the business, but really was in the dark about the investor side of it, kind of what their value proposition or how they approach things. And so I think it's been really enlightening for me, kind of learning the architecture of their mindset, as well as understanding aligning both from the entrepreneurial set as well as the investor standpoint. Next, actually in about 5 days, I'll be flying back to California, back to Palo Alto. There's an elective within our business school for entrepreneurial finance. So you really kind of, it's like an immersive kind of 1 week course where you're in Silicon Valley, kind of meeting with a lot of the investors from there. I went to school there, so I was at Stanford prior when I was a student. And so like I was being on the other end, kind of now being from a student, now kind of as an alumni, now being a student again. But kind of being, this course is a very unique course in the sense it takes it from the venture capital perspective too. And so it's going to be really exciting to kind of have a different mindset from that standpoint. But I would also say that just, again, going back to this idea of the personal networks that you have within the program, a lot of the organic conversations that I've had with my colleagues and friends informally in the restaurant pubs, in between breaks during the modules, has also led to what I would say concrete developments within our company, both with developing new business outside of the US, as well as like kind of funneling some staff, like hiring new staff kind of from the network that we developed within Oxford. So I think it's really been impactful both from a content standpoint, but then I think also importantly from the network that was really kind of developed organically during my time here.
Perfect. And yeah, just to get the MGHL perspective on that, maybe Neha, I think you're probably quite well placed to say something on that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jonathan. Being an entrepreneur myself, I think it's given me a lot of confidence in my entrepreneurial journey because now I have a better understanding. I can put things together. When I joined the course, I was just starting my entrepreneurial journey. So it's actually been good because I've had a lot of flexibility in terms of college and study and work and everything. The entrepreneurial space in India is slightly different. The hustle is still there. But in the cancer space specifically, this course has helped me because there's an element of medical stuff as well from the Nuffield. So I could relate that to my modules. And as I said, I enjoyed evidence-based medicine the most because I think I could relate to that in terms of an entrepreneurial journey. Though I would say that we've done a little bit of pitching, etc., in our innovation module. In real life, it might be a little bit more different than that when you have to pitch to an investor. But at least it gives you a good understanding of what needs to be put in there and what it entails. So overall, my entrepreneurial journey, and also I think I had a lot of other classmates who were entrepreneurials. So we could support each other, talk this through, and we still link and we still see how we can expand in other geographies with your own network. So I think networking is one of the brilliant things that's happened in this course from an entrepreneurial perspective.
Yeah, perfect. And hopefully what's come out from both of those answers is that entrepreneurship is such a key focus for us here at the school, and particularly on the EMBA. If you look at kind of typical outcomes from the program now, it's becoming more and more the case that more and more people are going into business with people either that they meet in their cohort or quite often through connections made via the rest of the Oxford ecosystem, as Bernard sort of alluded to there. So great to see and hear about some of that entrepreneurial thinking in practical action, which is great to hear. Conscious of time, so I think I'm going to hand back to Laura for maybe one final question, and then we'll look towards wrapping up.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, just a final question, Neha. I know you have to go quite soon as you've got another call, so maybe.
No, that's okay.
Oh, okay. But a final question. Obviously, people on this call joining will be, thinking about the different programs at different stages. Some people sort of still making up their minds. So it'd be nice to, just get maybe a word or a piece of advice that you would give to people on this call who are thinking about the program going forward.
I think if you're looking to study and innovate yourself more and explore more potentials of yourself, you should go ahead for it. They call it intensive for a reason, and it is. So don't take it lightly. There's a reasonable amount of work that gets involved in it. But the experience is great. The faculty is great. They support you all throughout it. So it may seem like it may seem very daunting, but I've come through the 2 years and trust me, it's been a great journey. So if you want to do it, go ahead and do it.
Thanks, Neha. Very nice. Alicia, over to you. If that's okay.
Very, very similar. Yeah, do not wait. I think this is a unique opportunity, and I believe if people are already here, so it means that they're very interested. And to be honest, I jumped at last minute. I considered different schools in the US as well. And I didn't think about Oxford just because it's so far away from the US. But in the minute I was accepted, I think this is the best decision in my life I have ever made because it's just a very unique opportunity. If you have this opportunity, just go ahead and do it. Yeah, so it's a very similar suggestion.
Thank you. Bernard, any final words for people?
Sure. I would say with the journey, really, I think at the stage in many of the potential students' lives, this is really a journey with your network. So I think it is to the other panelists' points, it is quite an intensive journey. You're going to get tremendous support from the program as well as your friends and your peers. But we really want to make sure that you're aligned with, say, if your spouse, your significant other, your family, because I mean, there are extraordinary, I would say, emotional investment that you're going to have and experience as a student, and trying to be inclusive and making sure that your loved ones are kind of along that journey as well, because it really truly is a transformational experience over those 2 years. And I can say it probably with comes with both of these programs. And I think that I in some senses underestimated. I knew I was going to learn about accounting, finance, and operations, but I think, and I kind of knew where I was going to hopefully meet some new friends, but I think I vastly underestimated how deep that experience would be. And recognizing too as well, watching your loved ones see your transformation, I think really trying to kind of bring them along the journey as well and include them, because I think that I was worried initially. I was saying, well, I'm going to be doing a part-time program. How impactful will it be? By the end of the program, I'm now wondering, oh, it's so impactful. I want to make sure that it really also grounds me on like your life, outside too as well.
Thank you. That's really true. And I think graduation, obviously none of you have graduated yet, but that's a lovely opportunity where you do actually get to bring your family, your friends, celebrate and really sort of take in everything that you've achieved over the last few years. Yeah. And last but not least, Amari.
Yeah, I'll tie my comment to a question in the Q&A about the advantage for junior professionals. I consider myself a junior professional within my cohort, and what I would say is that there's a popular saying that experience is the best teacher, and it doesn't have to be your experience only. So imagine you are surrounded by, in my case, 38 mentors who are all adding their experience and adding value to you. So I believe that as a young professional, it's probably the best situation you can imagine yourself to be in, because you would have people who are invested in you, and even in just casual social interactions, you are learning a lot of things that would put you on a good track to accomplishing your own dreams and desires.
Thank you. That's a very nice note to finish on. So thank you very much, Anne, for picking up the question. I know there are a few questions that we didn't get to. Apologies for that. If you want to follow up with us directly, we'll have contact details at the end, but I'm sure also the panel will be happy to connect with people. But yes, if we could please bring up the slideshow, and then Jonathan, over to you for.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, thank you again to our panel for those insights. I think that's probably given our audience a really good sense of what it's like to be on either program. Because I think we're always conscious in the recruitment teams that when people look at brochures and websites, it can be quite difficult to really sort of properly bring the program to life without actually hearing from someone who's physically going through it at the moment. So some really good insights there, and I think hopefully will help people kind of a little bit along the journey in terms of working out which program might be the best fit for them. So yeah, as Laura said, at this point, just wanted to share a few details if you want to follow up with us in the team to talk about your either an application for the program or how to go about doing that. So you'll see there from an executive MBA perspective the next steps that you need to take. And also the list of our members in the recruitment team. So depending on what region you're based in, you will have a different point of contact. And yeah, hopefully you can see on there the different recruitment managers for each region. So if you're based in Africa or in North America, then I would be your point of contact. If elsewhere, then it would be another one of my colleagues. Next slide, please, Sophie. And over to you, Laura.
Thank you. Yes, just with regards to the Masters in Global Healthcare Leadership, similar next steps. If you want to find out, more of the sort of practical information, you can download a brochure and read a little bit more about the application process and such. But if you have any final questions or want to speak in more detail about making an application, do get in contact with me. My details are here. We are still accepting applications for the 2024 class, which, as I mentioned, starts in September, but there isn't long. We need to receive your application in the next few weeks. So do feel free to get in touch if that's something you'd be interested in. Otherwise, we'll reopen applications for 2025 in October of this year. And keep an eye out. We'll let you know when applications go live. So then just the final slide. Just to say, massive thank you, really. Thank you so much to our amazing panel. It's been lovely having you all and hearing more about your experience. It's been really, really helpful. And I hope everybody on the call has found it as insightful as we have. And just thank you so much for everybody for joining the session today. And we very much hope to see you in Oxford sometime in future. So thank you very much, everybody.